all of the good employees and workers actually, wanted to contribute to the organization. They wanted to be, they wanted to achieve the goals that they have set. And
Mm,
also, because of that, they also wanted to be recognized and
mm.
also, and even promoted, even, But guess what, Reality is, and I have learned this in my life as well. There are so many good people, but not all of them are actually rewarded or recognized at the same time.
Mm. Mm.
So sometimes it is a factor of being in the right place at the right time,
Yes.
being probably with the right project or being with the right set of collaborators.
Mm.
So there is an element of luck.
Good day and welcome to the Leader's Edge. Today marks season 15, episode 2, with one of our most frequent guests and certainly one of our most valued speakers, uh, who will be talking to us about lessons he learned while he was in Africa. So please let us all give a warm welcome to Eric Riego de Dios. Eric?
Hi, Dino. It's always a great pleasure. And I always look forward to having a conversation with you and with your mom. So certainly I'm in the midst of friends and family whenever we have these kinds of conversation. So thank you so much for this great opportunity. As you know, Dino, traveling for me is an investment and a personal investment where I learn a lot. No, it's very similar to also investing on your MBA, but this one is really full of hands-on experience. That's why my wife and I are really biased for investing on learning through traveling. And one good thing about this, Dino, is that I actually committed to my wife during our wedding. On one of my wedding vows, actually, is to take
Ooh.
her to a different place every year. So God has been so faithful that in our 20 years of a marriage, of married life, He has been faithful in giving us opportunity in actually traveling and
Mm.
knowing about more than 20 countries in our
Wow.
married life. So it's a real blessing and it's a real educational and learning evolution and transformation for both of us. So on this 20th anniversary of ours,
Hmm.
we sort of planned a very special program, which is going to this is not my first time going to this continent, but
Mm.
definitely, as you know, even before, this continent has been considered as a black continent, full of mystery, full of, allure. And of course, many of the erstwhile explorers really wanted to know the deep, dark heart of this continent, which is, of course, Africa. And that is my pleasure, actually, Dina, of sharing more with you what I actually learned about Africa this time around when we visited South Africa.
Cool. There are two people I know who've been there and who helped to correct my notion of South Africa. One of them has been a guest on the show. That's Douglas Kruger,
Oh,
who has
wow.
since, yeah, he hails from South Africa and then he moved to the UK,
Right.
where he became a published author for fiction writing.
Mm.
And he's also a financial advisor. So he set me straight about some notions I have about South Africa and how modern it really is. And then the other one was interacting with Toastmasters who told me, Dino, you haven't really seen how good speakers are until you've seen the Toastmasters Club based in Zimbabwe. I said,
Oh, wow.
what? There's one? So like, okay, I gotta see that. I have to try to find a Zoom link to attend that Toastmasters meeting. So, Eric, please tell us, uh, are there any notions that you're aware of, especially from people who've never been there, that you
Right.
could dispel for us?
Yes, for sure, Dino. So Dino, you're right. I heard 2 points coming from you. One is there are many notions or preconceived notions that might not necessarily be true. And I
Mm-mm.
also learned that through the process. So that is one, and we will go through that as I probably present to you some slides. I just have some; those are not really big slides with big talking points. It's just these are just sets of slides with picture, and then there's some sort of a statement there. What we could probably elaborate more and deep
Mm-mm.
dive into that conversation. But the first thing you said is many mysteries or many notions or many myths about Africa. So when I
Mm-mm.
also came there, and one of those myths is, maybe we can already start that, but I actually did not put this as part of the 5 or 6 lessons that I wanted to share. But it's a good thing that you did, Dino, because when you go through that process of traveling, you also learn that some preconceived notions of yours are actually broken by the time that you enter that country, experience life, and experience the people. So that's the great beauty of traveling, Dino, as you know. So when we talk about Africa, I always thought that Africa is sort of uh, hot, humid,
Yeah.
dusty. Right, right, right. So when we went there, and we said that, oh, it's already spring by the standards of South Africa, and we're going to summer, only to find out when we came there, we experienced 5 degrees, 8 degrees centigrade, and we needed to have some jackets. And you
Oh.
know, when we're doing we're when we're on our safari vehicle or jeep, of course it's not air conditioned, it's all open, so it also doesn't have a heater, so
My
you
God.
are actually open to the element during that time. And when we do safari, Gino, it's usually is at the early start of, breaking of the dawn. It's 5
Oh.
a.m. So it's really chilly. So it's 8 degrees centigrade. Me being an Asian, lived my life in a tropical environment, wondering and thinking that I thought Africa would be relatively hotter than the Philippines, but I was
Mm.
wrong. I was wrong. So when we were driving, it's already 8 degrees, and the chill factor of the wind
Oh,
runs
oh
to
my.
you. And then that's why I realized, why did the driver give us blankets? And I found out
Oh.
the hard way
Okay.
why they are giving out blankets when we're doing our safari game drive.
Mm.
So yes, so that's one of the things that, one of the notions that was actually broken
Mm.
when I went there. And and then there are so many more, and maybe we can go through that as I actually tell you some of the stories that I have on
Mm.
the slide. So if I may,
Yeah,
Dino,
please.
I just prepared this, and then let me know whether you could already see.
Okay, yes, it's come through. Oh, there you go.
It
Yeah.
is. So I entitled this. I just literally came out of Africa, Dino,
Mm.
landed at 4 past 4 p.m. yesterday. And I said, while it's a great timing as well, although I'm suffering for a bit of jet lag right now. But I said I wanted to capture all of these thoughts freshly served in this conversation, because otherwise, some of these things might fly out from my mind. And as early served out fresh in this conversation. Out of Africa, lessons for
Mm.
the workplace. So, being the HR that I am, although I am, I see I'm in awe of the wonder and the marvel of nature in Africa. I always try to connect all of these things in the workplace. You can take you like Eric out of the Philippines, but you cannot take Eric out of HR, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why there's always a lesson for me, applicable for our workplace, especially especially if you are a leader,
Mm. You know,
So there you go.
as you begin your discussion, Eric, I'd
Yes.
like to say that I have a lot of appreciation and respect for South Africa. After all, it's where Elon Musk came from.
All right. Right. And you mentioned about Mr. Kruger, right? And Mr.
Yes.
Kruger transferred, erstwhile a South African, becoming an Englishman or a British citizen. And
Mm.
actually, the safari that we went to, which is great because that is very much connected with this topic, leadership
Mm.
in the wild. The
Mm.
safari lodge that we went to is named Hamilton's Tented Camp. So it is not your usual building, Dino. It is not. It is actually made of tent, but
Oh.
a very hard tent. It's one of the most known camps in the heart of Kruger National Park. So that's
Ooh.
why. So I'm connecting Mr. Kruger to the Kruger National Park. So the Kruger National Park is the biggest safari or savanna that is owned by the government, named after the John Kruger before, who bought this land in South Africa, the
Mm.
biggest savanna where you can actually go out on a safari.
Mm.
So we are at the heart of Kruger National Park. And as you can see here, this is just a specimen of the different animals that we saw.
Mm.
So it's great
Rhino.
because when we landed, so from Joburg, one of the biggest cities in South Africa, you still need to go to actually to Kruger.
Ooh.
So to go to Kruger, you land, depending on where you are, but the biggest international airport in South Africa is in Johannesburg, OR Tombo. So we landed there, and then we went straight to a domestic flight going from Johannesburg to Skukuza. And by the way, if you search Skukuza Airport, it is the tiniest but the prettiest airport that I have been to. So just Google it up for our audience. Just Google it up. You will be awed, and you'll fall in love with this tiny but very pretty airport. And from
Mm.
there, we rode a van, and my wife had lots of luggage with her, so we really need a big car to travel from the airport. And from the airport to our actual camp, it
Mm.
took us about 3 hours to get to our camp. So that's how big Kruger National Park is. So it's from Skukusa to the camp, 3 hours, and then probably you can just spread 3 hours from the different direction to get that space coverage of the Kruger National Park, because our camp is at the heart of the Kruger National Park
Oh, that's a
itself.
big park.
Very, very big park,
Yeah.
where animals can roam free and roam wild. And you know what? I had the opportunity to interview the manager of Hamilton's tented camp. So,
Mm.
Dino, and for our audience as well, you can Google it up, the Hamilton's tented camp. And it's a group of companies for your resort, or even your safari or game accommodation.
Mm.
So having said that, me being, again, the HR that I am, I didn't pass up the opportunity to interview the manager of our camp, and I asked him, what kind of leadership tip can you share with me, so that we can benefit, leaders, HR practitioners, from the wealth of knowledge that you have
Mm.
gathered throughout the years. And this person has more than 20 years of managing camps or
Wow.
accommodations in safari in the wild.
Mm.
And what I discovered from him is maybe nothing really new, Dino. It's not really rocket science. You really have to establish a good learning methodology, a good orientation for all of your people, and then give them the opportunity to be creative and to be flexible and to be agile. While
Mm.
you are in the safari or you are in the savannah, I would tell you, half 30 minutes from the airport, I already lost signal.
What?
So for sure, you have no means of communicating,
Mm.
Googling, or any data, or calling any person via cellular phone if you're out in the wild. So
Mm.
that's what he said. Once my people are out in the wild, they would have to be creative. They would have to depend on their knowledge, their experience, and it's all about agility and situational leadership.
Mm.
So when I sort of ingested those thoughts, he even mentioned a very specific example. So there is no one leadership style that fits all that will make you successful in the savannah or in the safari. He
Mm.
said that like the rhinos, and there are two species of rhinos in
Oh.
South Africa. There is the white rhino, and you're seeing it here, and there is also
Ah.
the black rhino.
Oh.
So even if you are almost in the same species of black and white,
Mm.
they have different ways of traveling and also taking care of their calves.
Mm.
So the white rhinos would tend to actually have their calves in front of them when traveling.
Oh, so they
And
can keep an eye on them.
probably so. But what is surprising is the black rhinos actually tend to have their calves at their back when traveling.
Oh.
And there is no better method because both of them are actually thriving.
Mm.
Both of them are actually living and gaining population in South Africa and in the wild.
Mm.
So you cannot say that the methodology of the white rhino is better than the methodology of the black rhino. So perhaps it really depends on your behavior, whatever works for you in the past, because maybe because they lived with that kind of a process, with that kind of an approach, because it worked for them. And true
Mm.
enough, it's still working because they are gaining a bit more population. So they're saying it's all about situational leadership, Dino. It's all about agility, what works for you and what has worked in the past. And maybe you don't really have to fix something that is not broken at all. And what will a white rhino, what can apply to the white rhino, but might not necessarily be the best for the black rhino as well, and
Mm.
vice versa. So that is my
Mm.
first learning, Dino. And it's a great takeaway for our leaders as well.
Mm.
It's really getting to know your people and also approaching them in the best way possible that they would be responding to. Do you know,
Mm.
every time we hear the golden rule, what comes to mind is do unto others what you would want others to do unto you. But of course,
Mm.
now you're hearing more of the platinum rule, which is do unto others what others would want, would others would want you to do unto them based
Mm.
on their own preferences. So
If I
there's
may briefly interject, Eric,
sure.
what I'm realizing from what you're sharing is that the white rhino, if I use an analogy, behaves a lot like, say, how the military might behave,
Mhm.
meaning sending the troops ahead and the officers stay behind,
Yes,
directing their
yes.
movements. But the black rhino behaves more like the corporate organization that it is, where leaders lead by example to allow the people to follow their example.
Very
So,
beautiful analogy, Dino. I like the way you put it. But then again, it again back to situation leadership. Probably
yeah.
in a war, then probably we'll do the white rhino methodology. But running a big corporation or conglomeration, probably the black rhino might work better for
Mm,
us. So
agreed.
we probably have to understand the terrain, the situation, and then perhaps learn from it and be agile enough to also pivot as needed.
And something you brought up, which is very relevant, is that leaders need to be agile, as you said, because once you lose the signal, you're limited to either a satellite phone, which is terribly expensive,
Not
or
accessible to all, right? For
yeah,
sure.
or maybe you bring messenger pigeons with you.
You're
So
right.
I imagine people who work for that resort, for that savannah, are people who are incredibly fit, because if anything happens to their van, they need to be able to hike all the way back
For
to camp.
sure. For sure. And they really have to know the geography, their topography as well, and the behavior of the animals, because for some,
Mm.
you might not necessarily know, some could be more aggressive, some could
Ayo,
be
yeah.
docile, and it really pays to really know your environment. And I said, this manager of that camp has been there for more than 20 years, and so are their
Wow.
drivers and spotters as well. Years of experience. So I'm actually fascinated whenever they see the track they could immediately tell, oh, some rhinos actually went here last night and going to the direction. So they could
Yeah.
just see, and oh, and then they said, oh, I also see a track here. Maybe rhinos, no, those are elephants. So I couldn't distinguish, but of course, only experience would let you have that kind of discernment. So,
Wow. So that means their training is very different from what we are aware of. And that also puts in the idea that training must be relevant and must be applicable. Hmm.
Training must be relevant, must be applicable, and you have to really go through it. Because
Hmm.
if it's just theories, Dino, I guess, it could do you a bit of two steps there. But once you actually experience it, that could be amplified further down the road, amplifying it through miles and miles. So I really appreciated, right? That's why we said, I really like traveling, because it is really the full experience that you go through that is embedded in you, that you cannot easily forget, and that is really deep learning as I experience it.
Hmm. Eric, was it dusty at all? Because it can get very windy there.
That's right. I was expecting dust, but when I came there, it said it rained, and I said it's
What?
not all arid. I thought Africa would be semi-desert, and they
Yeah.
said it just rained last 2 weeks. And as you know,
Hmm.
we had a very beautiful tented camp location. We were so blessed because when it rained, it flooded the river canal such that
Oh.
it invited hippopotamus, crocodiles,
Ah.
rooms. So we didn't even have to go outside of our camps to really go on a safari to find animals. And there is also a resident elephant that would greet us every morning asking for breakfast. So it is really a wonder to be up close and almost personal
Hmm.
with these creatures of the wild. So another deep learning there that truly I won't forget.
Hmm.
So that is really leadership in the wild. As I learned from it, it's really all
Mm-mm.
about experience. It's about situational leadership, so to speak.
Yeah.
You really have to go through that experience so that you can amplify that with the right approach to your people, depending on the terrain and the topography or the lay of the land. So, having said that, Dino, I introduced to you the Rhino, which is one of the big five. So now this is the second lesson that I have. It
Oh,
is the big five. I don't know whether you're seeing this or
yes.
it
Yes.
is. Okay.
An
So the
elephant, a lion, a caribou, a rhino, and what looks like a leopard or a cheetah.
leopard, perfect, perfect. So that's right. So,
Mm.
I share this because back in the days where Africa was mostly a colonial continent, so
Yeah.
definitely shared by the Dutch, the Portuguese, the British, the German, even so
Yeah.
on and so forth, depending on which country you are in. So definitely all of them, they engage in a hunt. And the
Mm.
five most dangerous animals to hunt are what you actually mentioned. That's why we said it is the big five. So we have the elephant,
Oh.
the lion, the buffalo,
Mhm.
the rhino, and the leopard. So these are
Ah.
the most dangerous animals to hunt.
Mm.
So, zebra is not here because they're just there, and they're a plenty. We also have, I saw lots of giraffes, lots of impala, lots of kudu, lots
Mm.
of warthog,
Mm.
different antelopes. You will have oryx. You will have I mentioned kudu. You'll have gazelle. You'll also have springbok.
Wow.
I can go on and on. I saw all of them from we haven't even gone to our safari drive in our camp, but only from the airport to our camp in that 3 hour drive, I already saw three out of the big five. I already saw the elephants, I already saw the lion, I already saw the leopard, which is to many's expectation would be the rarest of these five nowadays because of the
Mm.
living population, and also because they are the most aloof of all of these big five creatures. So because we had 4 days, full days and 3 nights in our camp, And I told you that we start our day at 5 a.m. with
Wow.
a game drive. And we also end our day at 5 p.m. with our next game drive. So there are two game drives in a
Hmm.
day. So because we stay there for 4 days, you multiply that by four times two. I had eight game drives. So I said, I already saw the elephant, the lion, the leopard on my way to the camp. It's not yet a drive, but I already saw the three. What are the odds of not finding the rhino and the buffalo in my eight game drives? So,
Very low.
I did not see the rhino nor the buffalo
Oh.
in that eight game drives.
Oh. Okay. Well.
I did not even see another pair of leopards. But I saw them on my way from the airport to the camp. So I saw again lots of elephants. I saw lots of lions. In fact, there is an up close and personal encounter with the lion
Hmm.
because they are mating. And because they are mating, they couldn't care less about what is around. They're just focused on themselves. So there is just about 1 meter from our jeep to the mating lions, so that we had I had the privilege of going having a video with this very much in love couple.
Okay.
I said I couldn't get any closer than 1 meter. I think 1 meter is the closest I could really get to these wild, king
Hmm.
of the savannah, so to speak, the royalties of the savannah. So
And I don't know if you can verify this, Eric, but I do know that lions tend to be, how do I say, the male lion, it tends to want to dominate and have like a selection of,
yes.
kind of like a harem. So was there that situation in what you saw, like several other females serving this one lion king?
Oh, well, that tends to be the case, and I heard about that. But in this particular situation, Dino, this just gentle lion, this gentle man, only had one
Oh.
lady with him during that night. So they didn't care if the spotlights were on them, literally because the headlights of the jeep were
Oh
shining,
my.
and then the torch, the powerful torch that the driver was actually glaring on them. They couldn't care less, so they
Mm.
just went on their honeymoon.
And I guess the savannah itself is what you might call a nature preserve, where a safari would essentially be a photo safari instead of like the old mindset of what a safari was, which was to bring back a trophy, a head.
Oh
So this
yeah.
one was just taking pictures and not much else.
That was our trophy.
Yeah.
Great pictures, HD pictures, So, that was already a success from my definition, because being 1 meter close to a lion, I could just dream about it when I was young. So I had that real privilege of really being even intimate with them in their most intimate time as well.
Oh,
So
I'll look forward to your Facebook posts.
oh yeah, we'll also have videos there. But the
Oh.
lesson I wanted to share here, Dino, is
Yeah.
that uh, all safari goers like myself really wanted to, hit the big five, meaning see all of
Mm.
them in your
Mm.
journey. But you know what, Dino? I was sort of in a way heartbroken, because you know what, there are always two drives, because our camp could only accommodate 12 people anytime. So
Oh.
and we are and only six people could be accommodated in our jeep. So there are two.
Mm.
So the first six is with one jeep, and the next six would be on the other jeep.
I imagine you had to sign a waiver of some sort.
Yes, yes, you do. You do. You do sign. So I also share with you another waiver that I signed in another slide. So what
Okay.
happened, is the other Jeep was very fortunate to have seen all the big five.
Wow.
Yes, they have, they flaunted, they flex in our, a new parlance, so to speak. They flex
Mm.
the photos of the buffalo and the
Mm.
rhino. And we were all so jealous, and I was so heartbroken. And because they saw the buffalo and the rhino very near our camp. And I said,
Uh-oh.
we had to cover, kilometers and kilometers of savanna just to find, the buffalo and the rhino. And we were so hopeful on our last two game drives that we'll be able to see it, but no. Yeah. So the lesson there, Gino, is all of the good employees and workers actually, wanted to contribute to the organization. They wanted to be, they wanted to achieve the goals that they have set. And
Mm.
also, because of that, they also wanted to be recognized and
Mm.
also, and even promoted, even, But guess what, Reality is, and I have learned this in my life as well. There are so many good people, but not all of them are actually rewarded or recognized at the same time.
Mm. Mm.
So sometimes it is a factor of being in the right place at the right time,
Yes.
being probably with the right project or being with the right set of collaborators.
Mm.
So there is an element of luck. But Dino, if I stay there for a couple of days more or
Mm-mm.
probably for another week, I have no doubt that I will also see the big five.
Yeah,
So
eventually. Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
But the thing there is consistency of
Mm.
excellent at work as well.
But
Because
but there's
reality,
another
yeah,
sorry, there's another aspect of this, and that is the big five. I think two of them are more active at night, so they're more dangerous at night, like the lion and the leopard. While the elephant, the buffalo, and the rhino might be more active during the day. So that brings out a thought that maybe when you want to be recognized, it's when you're doing the more hazardous part of the job, which is taking people on safari at night.
probably so. But yeah. So it really depends, because I mentioned we have two game drives every day. So
Mm.
one is at 5 a.m. to 7, and another one is 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So in a way, we also capture part of the night or
Oh.
part of the dusk and the dawn, and of course, daytime. So yes, that's
Mm.
why though that the drives are designed that way to
Mm.
get the most of the day and the night as well. But you're right. Having said that, some of them are actually nocturnal creatures, or they
Mm.
hunt during the night or more active at night.
Mm.
And going back to the myths as well, Dino, or all about perception.
Yeah.
So most of the animals in the safari, actually, like for example, the giraffe or even the zebra or even the elephant. Um, just so maybe let's use the giraffe as an example. We human beings, we are in a monophase of sleep, but many animals are actually in a multi-phase of sleep. And why is that? So when I say multi-phase of sleep, it's different from the way we are sleeping. So do you know when we are sleeping, right? Our eyes are closed, we are still, we are not moving,
Mm.
right? So that is our definition of sleep,
Mm.
and we are hardly aware of what's happening in the environment. The multi-phase of sleep, which is, of course, exhibited by these animals, the giraffe, for example, is they said, because when I saw a giraffe, the giraffe was sort of chewing and the eyes are open.
Oh.
And I thought the giraffe was awake. And then the, the driver or the spotter said, no, they're sleeping.
Huh.
They're sleeping. They are just using those movements, and their eyes are seemingly open because they have two eyelids,
Mm.
um to to sort of confuse the predators that they are
Mm.
awake.
Mm.
So Gino, they are chewing in their sleep. They are they're standing and they're asleep, and that's the multi phase of sleep that they have
Mm,
adopted to, so that they're able to survive in the savannah or in the wild. So that too is another, one of the things that I learned, and also one of the misconceptions that I also sort of broke, that when a creature is chewing or standing, it doesn't mean that they're awake.
Hey,
So
Eric,
don't,
just a
don't
funny
judge
thought.
and go to conclusions.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
just a funny thought. Wouldn't that equate to looking busy
Yeah.
in the corporate
and
world?
that, and that's what the spotter said. So we're starting to adapt to the multi-phase of sleep as well. So we go, I told the driver I can definitely relate, because many of the employees actually try to pretend that they're awake when they're
Yep.
they're actually in the office. Yeah.
Remember, the boss is around. Look busy.
That's right. So that's my lesson in the big five. It will come, recognition will come. We will all see the big five. It's a matter
Hmm.
of time, but there has to be consistency, and all good employees in time will also be recognized. So,
Yeah.
it's a matter of timing as well.
Hmm. Oh,
So this one is what they call the pride of Africa, the Rovos Rail. It's very,
wow.
very colonial, very
Mm.
British. And when we were traveling from Cape Town to Pretoria, so Cape Town is the legislative capital of South Africa. And another fascinating information is, South Africa has actually three capitals. So this is the first country that I realized, having three capitals. So one is Cape Town, which is
Yeah.
the
Cape
legislative
Town.
capital.
Mm,
You also have Pretoria, which is the
mm,
executive or the administrative capital. So probably your president, your department or cabinet
mm,
ministers or department secretaries will be residing or also holding office. And also you have Bloemfontein, which is the judicial capital. So that
mm,
actually illustrates as well the separation of the three highest governing bodies of a nation. So legislative, executive, and judicial, all in three cities of South Africa. So I mentioned this because we're traveling from the legislative capital, which is Cape Town, going to the executive capital or administrative capital, which is Pretoria. And my wife was always fascinated by Rovos Rail because she's been reading about this, and the Rovos Rail is actually known to actually transport you across the borders of Africa in the olden times when there were no airplanes, and you travel in, quite in a luxurious manner, so to speak. So you have your own bed, you have your own bath with hot and cold water there, and overflowing food and wine. Although we don't drink, that's one of the things that we actually miss, because for if you are a wine drinker, this would be really a haven for you, a heaven for you, because overflowing wine, liquor, and what have you. So service deluxe, so to speak. But what I also realized, that although the intention is really for a smooth and hassle-free and comfortable, even luxurious travel, it might not be achieved, only because you can only control so much of the many different variables that
mm.
are involved in having a good and comfortable travel. So in this case, and this is Africa, Dino, and as I don't know whether you've heard about this, some of the rails, the steel bars used for the rails of the train, sometimes they would get stolen
What?
and stolen. So
What?
the track would now be broken, and how can you actually continue with your travel or with your journey? So,
Right.
and sometimes before, it's purely coal, right? So
Mm.
just use coal so that the locomotive motor will go, and then pull the traction so that it will move. All so many trains there, many vans there. Unfortunately, some of the cables are also stolen and left hanging, and then it did not provide some electrical, further electrical support to the train. And again, that would result in another derailment and another delay in the Rovos Rail, which, your expectation was this would be one of the most comfortable, one of the most luxurious travel means of transportation in the whole of African continent. So
Mm.
with that, the lesson here really is not necessarily about the stolen rails or the stolen cables, but it's really all about leadership again. Because what I observed, Dino, is whenever there is a delay, a mishap, an issue, or a problem, we hear it straight from the topmost leader. So when we were just waiting at the station, even before the actual travel, it was Rohan Voss himself. That's why
Mm.
it's Rovos. It's from his name. The
Ah,
actual founder and CEO. He is already in his 80s right now,
wow.
or he was very much accountable, and
Mm.
told everyone that unfortunately we're encountering some delays and so on and so forth. So again, beyond their control, because they cannot control rails or cables being stolen. So we hear it straight from the leadership. And also,
Mm.
while we're already traveling, while we're inside our own cabins, we hear it straight from the train manager
Mm.
whenever there is an issue. So,
Mm.
although of course this is not the best news that you can hear, but when you hear it from the leaders themselves, you know that they are taking this very seriously, and you know as well that they are addressing this with utmost urgency.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
also realized that.
a good lesson there is in customer service. Recently, I've had a very, very bad experience with one of our major airlines here in the Philippines.
And
You probably
we will not name that airline
yeah,
just
we
yet.
won't. You probably saw my posts, but I would have loved for somebody in authority to have gotten on the public address system to explain to all of us why we were waiting so long, instead of just rumors here and there with nobody really knowing what was going on. I envy your experience, because if I heard it from the owner himself, that tells me he takes your experience as a customer very seriously. It's
Very
important to
seriously.
him.
Correct. And,
Yeah,
it, and you know that there is an urgent action being done
right.
already
I mean,
at the
it
very
the buck
least.
stops
Yeah.
with him. Yeah, if
Yes,
he
for
if he
sure.
wants to replace the rail line, it'll get done.
Right, right. So yeah, so I saw that, and that leadership quality was really amplified during those very in a way trying times for us, because we were waiting and waiting, but we are assured that utmost attention is being actually applied
Mm.
in that kind of a situation. And you know what? Aside from that, I was also feeling the agitation coming from the customers, and from my
Oh.
co-passengers.
Mm.
Because I told you that this is quote unquote a luxury train,
Oh.
and passengers are coming from the different countries, and they are not necessarily poor. So there are
Mm.
some of them are ambassadors or sons of ambassadors or diplomats or
Oh.
high-ranking government officials or having their own company.
Mm.
I had this wonderful conversation with a very senior gentleman who has been sort of quote unquote a prince coming from Russia. That is kind
Wow.
of lineage, and he's currently an author. So that those are the kind of people. And when those people actually complain, and
Uh-oh.
when you feel that they're agitated, you will just sort of melt if you're the frontliners in
Yeah.
situation. And what I realized during those critical times, Dino, as a leader, you would really have to commend and motivate the effort
Mm.
of your people. So
Yeah.
when I saw this, um, they didn't I they the leader did not actually address them in front of the different in front of the passengers, but they called upon all of the staff. And then it's during the time that I was walking along the alley going back to our cabin that I saw the leader actually commending them, honoring them, acknowledging their efforts. And during this time, I guess it was really critical, a real critical time for you as a leader to really acknowledge your employees and your staff, because
Mm.
we don't want to add any more hiccups in the process. Just want to make sure that whatever you can control, you will control, and you will provide utmost and impeccable service despite
Mm.
the situation.
Hey,
So I
Eric, I have a question. After traveling the world for 20 years, um, I'm sure you can make a comparison already with, for example, if I'm sure you've been to Japan, so you've tried the Shinkansen. You've been to America, so you've tried their trains. You've also been to Europe, so you've experienced those kinds of trains as well. How would you rate the Rovos rail in comparison to those?
Yeah. So, it might not be apples to apples, right? So
Okay.
when you elect to ride the Rovos, you're not actually electing for the fastest,
Mm.
smoothest train ride. You elect to ride the Rovos for the romance, for the
Oh,
nostalgia, for
yeah,
the
yeah.
colonial feel of how the British royalty or dignitaries would have traveled from one point to another.
So
You
more
be
like more like the Orient Express then.
For sure. And you know what? And this is another point there, Dino. The Orient Express actually was just a replica of the Rovos Royal experience. This
Oh,
is the
oh,
first
okay.
Historically, this is the first luxury train. And we had our own butler as well during the time that would do our bed, in the morning,
Wow.
clean everything, give us our food if we want to have our food inside the cabin, or actually mingle with the people there. So
Mm.
so it was a great experience in a way, of course. But if you want to go immediately to Pretoria from Cape Town, I would rather that you fly or use the bus
Yeah,
or use
yeah.
a different commuter train, but not
Mm.
Rovos. Rovos is really more for you want to feel the atmosphere and luxury. And you know what? It's for me, it's not as romantic as I thought it would be, because it might be for other people or maybe more mature individuals. But because during dinner time we are asked to go formal, so I
Oh,
yes, so I would have to wear a suit. Me, it's a bit uncomfortable. While for the rest of the passengers, they feel so glamorous during dinner time. So
wow.
so I might not necessarily be the target market for Robust
Mm.
Trail after
Mm-mm.
all.
Yeah. Well, that talks about customs then, because I know that in Europe, the most people get all dressed up dinner,
Yes,
for
yes.
dinner.
For sure. And this one is, I saw them with ties, with bows, and
Wow.
and you know me, when I dress up with my suit, I just have a plain black inner garment, and then I just pull up a blazer there. So that's more or less my getup. I just felt really underdressed during
Oh
those
boy. Oh.
Yeah, so if you want, answering your question, if you want that the feel of the British glam,
Mm.
traveling in style with your own butler, if
Mm.
you wanted to be served your champagne before you sleep, and serve with hot water and prepare your tea, you also have tea time every 4 p.m. You always eat, and if you want to gain 3 kilos,
Wow.
just go to the Rovos Rail and you'll get all of those things.
Oh, without referencing the tragedy that happened to it, it's kind of like uh, Titanic on rails,
That
because
is
it's
true.
super luxurious and everybody really gets dressed up.
That is
Wow.
true. Yes, yeah, yeah. And you really have to speak with them. you will learn a lot by speaking with the different people there. So people there coming from Norway, from Russia, from
Whew.
France, from Britain, from Germany. We were the only Asians there.
Mm.
We were the only Asians there. So yeah, it's and it was refreshing every time we cross paths with other Asian travelers in Cape Town. So those are the only
Mm.
opportunities that we had when we saw other Asians in our travel. So
Eh,
go ahead, Dino.
did you pick up any phrases in Afrikaans?
Oh no. Normally I would, but I said because it's not necessarily it's difficult because it's a mix of German and
Mm.
Dutch. That's
Right.
why
Yeah.
I actually confuse whether when I say thank you, would I rather say danke schön, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's confusing. So because it's really is confusing and in between, I probably was not able to learn a lot from
Right.
Afrikaans. But you know what? The other thing I learned there is they have 11 official languages, and
Woo.
Afrikaans is just one of them. So when I heard about that, so what should I be using? Because when you go to Pretoria, Afrikaans is not necessarily used by a lot of people. But when you
Mm.
go to Cape Town, Afrikaans is more used as well. So,
Mm. Mm.
sometimes you'd really be confused. Like, probably like Cebuano for us and, Tagalog. So it's
Yeah.
really kind of hard. So yeah,
Mm.
so there you go. That's Rovos for you. And you know what?
Wow.
Rovos actually traveled in through the savannah and through the Karoo. And the
Mm.
Karoo is actually, geologically speaking, is an elevated seabed before. So it just
Ah.
rose up because of the magma build up from below. So just imagine all of the things that you're seeing here. These are under the sea before, Dino.
Wow.
Then they just rose
Mm.
up and got elevated, and because they are so high, very high, that they're not able to retain a lot of water, and that's
Mm.
why they are considered, the Karoo is considered as semi-desert.
If I
Uh,
had to guess, that would be an archaeologist's and a geologist's paradise, because
yes,
you would find fossils there that you don't have to struggle to dig up because it's elevated.
it's elevated there. You just probably just have to crack a stone and you'll see mollusks, the shells
Yeah,
over there as well.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what's actually was one of the features of the,
Mm.
and is again not very uncommon for you to pick up a fossil or two there as well, as you mentioned. So
You're allowed to just, if you find one, finders
yes, yeah,
keepers.
you keep it, you keep it. Yes, and because there's
Cool.
a lot actually. So and it's vast. We actually traveled, 3 days through the Karoo in the Rovos Rail. So what I would like to share here, and we already referenced this earlier on, the Savannah and the Karoo is almost zero or zero grid, in a way, out of the grid. So again,
Ah.
no mobile phone, no data. And the thing that I would like to share here is, so when we were in our camp, there is zero. I mentioned to you 30 minutes from the airport, I already had zero data or Z
Wow.
connectivity. And inside the Rovos Rail, aside from not having data because of the signals there, uh, um, the owner of Rovos Rail actually warned us that he would be, or his staff would be, confiscating your mobile phones when they see you tinkering with your mobile phones during meals. So,
Ah.
so again, so the old style of luxury and sharing meals, because what they wanted to achieve is serious conversation and serious drinking. So check
Oh.
for a serious one, but not necessarily for the serious drinking for my wife and I. So,
Oh.
but yes, they wanted to have a more intimate conversation
Mm.
with your and when you're traveling there, most of the time it's 95% between a partner, so a husband and wife, a newly married couple. So
Mm.
it's also true uh for the for the safari camp that we had, no? So we didn't have connectivity. So my wife and I, Karen and I, actually had that opportunity to be more intimate in our conversations because it is
Mm.
we are being robbed of attention and intimacy because of the mobile devices that we have.
True, true.
The kind of luxury that this actually offered us, and this is something that I would really share to be a luxury,
Mm-mm.
because right now with all of the stimuli around us, Dino, attention is one of the more scarce gifts that you can give a loved one.
Agreed, agreed. Latest statistics reveal, and this is according to Paul Lazo, one of our other hosts, that it's no longer just 10 seconds now. It's gone down to 8.5 seconds.
Wow. And that's how fast your TikTok should be, right?
so
Right. So
so
yes,
having that opportunity to really connect with one another, that must have been special.
that is very special. And you'll discover more because, being married for 20 years, you would just
Mm.
realize that, "Ah, I didn't realize that you were that kind of a kid before. You didn't tell me that you were a fan of Dragon Ball Z when you were young." That's what my wife told me. I didn't
Ah.
realize that you didn't like, some kind of meat that you would not eat, or I would be shocked. But why did you eat that? I haven't tried eating this kind of protein.
Mm.
So yeah, you would realize, and you get to know your significant loved one in a
Mm.
deeper perspective, or it would give you a better flavor or insight about your loved one that so sometimes would also ignite the romance and the knowledge of that person.
You
So
know,
with that,
Eric, I think one lesson here as well is something that another of our guests before, with your first name, Eric Manalo, would say that the best place to close a sale for real estate is at the site when you go tripping, because chances are there won't be a signal there, so you have the full attention of your prospect, and he's more likely to buy because there are no distractions.
he's very wise to use that. Very true.
So
So
I
here,
that means if you have like somebody you're trying to woo as a business partner for a venture, maybe inviting him to join you on the Rovos Rail so
that is
that you
true.
could really talk about business
And
would
you
be a
know
great.
what? Many businesses and deals are actually closed in that Rovos Rail travel. So if you could go through the history, some of the best deals, purchases, and even heads of states, their agreements, and maybe if the head of the Palestine Israel went on a Rovos Rail tour before, we would not have this kind of experience right now. But
Mm,
you're right, that kind of intimacy, being in the same environment without a lot of distraction, will really focus on issues and concerns, and
mm,
close and make some agreements as well. Very true, and historically true as well for the Rovos
mm.
Rail.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
what I learned here is, when you apply this, I said right now, even during one-on-ones, Dino, I am sort of heartbroken because every time I have conversations, people are, even on a one-on-one basis in the office setup, people are actually distracted by some chats popping up in your team
Mm,
messages or
mm,
your Zoom messages, and that intimacy of focus, and I said the luxury of attention, is
mm.
actually lost. So
Right.
sometimes we really have to make sure that we pay attention and
Mm,
focus attention with less or even zero distraction, because
mm,
our employees are and have the right to demand that as well, and are
mm,
worthy of having that luxury.
mm. I think the term there is that talent should feel visible or feel that they're noticed by their bosses.
Yeah, so right now it's not just being noticed really, because after the pandemic, the eagerness to be felt as an individual and to be acknowledged as a person actually was heightened even. So the need
Mm,
for attention was actually even triggered during the pandemic, Gino, as you know, as you might know.
mm. So, Eric, are you telling me you actually did the shark cage diving?
I did. So
Oh
the
my god!
lesson there, Gina, I'll tell you, So I told you the
Ah,
one of the one of the again myths about Africa is that it is warm, it is it's just desert, but it is a continent surrounded by waters
oh,
and dangerous waters at that, and
mm.
very frigid.
Oh my gosh!
And
So,
icy waters, because the part of Africa where Cape Town is, it is facing the southernmost part of the Atlantic Ocean, very
ah,
near and close to the Antarctic Ocean as
oh
well.
boy.
So so I said, when we were there, my wife and I, because we wanted to have this adrenaline rush, and
Yeah.
this is something that we said we can't do in any in many other places, since we're already here. So might as well
Mm,
grab the opportunity and have this kind of adventure.
mm,
So, but when we were there, because it is not as comfortable as I thought it would have been, because to lure the sharks, of course, you would have to have some devices, right?
right.
And we were there, and the cage was, I don't know how many meters, 3 meters by 1 meter, and there were six
Oh,
people at a time to go there. So
oh,
there's a lot of room for me to actually move when there are already sharks nearby. So we are actually caged, and thus the shark cage diving. Six of us at the time, and of course we are we're ferried there by a motorized boat
mm,
with diesel, and some of the diesels actually in the water. So
mm.
I could smell, I could taste, and
Ew.
even even before that, I already threw up, only
Oh,
because the wetsuits are so tight. Well, the wetsuits
oh,
are great to prevent you from freezing,
yes, yes.
the Atlantic Ocean, the southernmost part of the Atlantic Ocean. And
Mm,
by the time it was 8 degrees, as I mentioned to you, right? And
mm,
water should be colder by that time as well. So it was 8 degrees, and I don't know what's the degrees of the temperature of the water,
mm,
but the wetsuit helped. But putting on the wetsuit, and it was very tight, and I
mm.
was also, of course, sort of nervous, because I would not say that I am actually excited. I was nervous because it's not a very safe thing to do, right?
Right.
That these are predators, and
Mm.
you know, and even before that, we actually watch certain clips in YouTube about shark cage diving gone wrong. Just so we
Uh-oh.
know, we know what are the things that we need not do, so that we limit the risks.
Ah,
So when we were there, I was the first one to actually enter the cage, and the five and Karen came in next, and the rest of our companions came in then, and it was really cold because my hands were not covered by the
yeah.
wetsuit,
Yeah. So
so
no
that
gloves.
it's no gloves as well.
Mm,
Unfortunately, I didn't have that, so that's the only exposed part, and my face. And
mm,
we were wearing goggles,
mm,
great, but my mouth was open.
mm.
So to lure the shark, they would be throwing carcasses of salmon.
Yes.
And some
Ah.
of the salmon, the carcass of the salmon would be near my mouth. So every time I would,
Ew.
there would be, so it was not the most comfortable. So I'm already
Oh.
throwing up before. I didn't know if I threw up during, but I
Mm.
threw up again after. going up and seeing the sharks face to face. So, but that was really the closest thing I was able to experience with, for the lion, it was a meter, but this
Mm.
was almost just like this, probably
Yeah.
6 inches from the cage.
So you could see the teeth.
I could see the teeth, the nose, the mouth.
Uh,
Some of the fish are actually entering some of the cage. Some of their parts are in the cage.
uh, d-
So,
did
and
you
some
get
of
to
them will be,
did you get to touch the shark?
I did not, I didn't, I didn't think it was a very wise thing to do.
Okay. Oh.
But yes, so 6 inches was fine with me already. Seeing the
Mm.
shark face to face, seeing actually the teeth, and because some of them would go head on and then they would pivot, and then of course you'll see the tail also flapping on
Yeah.
the face there. So real up close and personal experience. I was not afraid of the shark during that time. I
Mm.
was really more of afraid of me ingesting the carcass of salmon. So
Oh.
it was not as adventurous, that kind of adventure that I
Mm.
experienced. And when I went up, it was even colder because I was,
Yeah, wind chill.
taking off my wind chill, taking off the wetsuit, and then I threw up 3 more times. So I
Oh
said,
man.
some things are not really meant to be repeated.
Yeah. Oh, at least you
and,
tried it once.
and that is the lesson that I also wanted to share, because sometimes when we have big projects that sometimes you really threw up, some relationships are broken.
Mm.
But afterwards, when you get out of the shark cage, several days, and even now, I am recalling, I, yes, I would not probably be doing that again.
Mm.
I'm glad that I did.
Mm.
There are some projects that we just see that, I almost died in that project, but I'm happy now looking back. I'm glad that we did it. And look at us now. We're better off with our experiences, much
Yeah.
like in the workplace. Sometimes we just, you're filled with fear, but you just have to go there, of course, have all the risks mitigated,
Mm.
make sure that you knows your do's and don'ts, and then charge in. You might not have to repeat it, but at least you have experienced it and you become a better person or a better professional because you've gone through that very risky or difficult project that you have.
If I had to guess, Eric, I have a feeling you bonded with a lot of the people that you were with, and maybe some of them became your friends.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Having such a kind of experience really is a bonding experience
Yeah.
because, as you get to be close with people you have intense experiences with, right?
Mm.
Because
Yes.
with there, and it's not the most glamorous, because the boat didn't have cubicles where you would have
Ah.
to change. So people
Ah.
saw you in your underwear.
Oh
So
my gosh.
what kind of intimacy else is there?
Yeah.
So you get to be very intimate, and so you can share a lot of more
Mm.
intimate conversations as well because of that experience.
I'm guessing here that maybe you weren't just the only one who threw up, maybe others as well.
Yes, of course. So my wife threw up. A couple of ladies. Not. I'm not proud of this, but I guess Mr. Love's company. I'm not the only man or male who actually threw up. There is a couple more. So
Oh.
I'm happy that we shared that same experience as well, Dino.
Yeah, it is a bonding moment. Not fun, but a bonding
It
moment.
is. It is. And
Mm.
whenever I see that video, because there's a same day editing video clip that they
Mm.
they shared with us. So I was happy that I would be able to relive that moment with the wife. So
Mm.
again, 20 years after now, in our 40th anniversary, we'll just be happy, reviewing and viewing
Mm.
again those clips, and we'll be happy that while we are able to, not that we're very old and not able to do and will not be able to bear the chilling cold of the Atlantic Ocean.
Here's a question, Eric. If you had team members, for example, in an organization who aren't getting along so well, and you subjected them to this shark cage diving. Maybe after that they'll bond. They'll get over their frictions and their disagreements. This might work faster than team building.
It might work, well, you just need to see the principle that perhaps there are factors that are more dangerous or risky,
Hmm.
or together they would experience whatever friction they have. There's
Yeah.
nothing compared to the common goals or odds that are in front of them. So yes.
There might even be conversations like, "Hey, eat him. He's bigger."
And I was just saying, while we're doing the safari as well, I was just saying, I was surveying. I said we are all six in the jeep, of course, with the driver seven. We're also bantering. I said, whenever we have this problem of the jeep not working, and there is a
Uh-oh.
pack of leopards or lions coming after us, I said, no, we have to be very, very fit so that we can outrun the lions. I said, no, I just have to be fit to outrun all of you. So I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
anyway, so
True.
so that's one experience. So this
Hmm.
is the last experience that I wanted to share with our audience,
Ooh.
with you and our audience. It's all about whales and hot air balloons. So
Mm.
as you know, much like the Rovos rails, some of the elements are not under our control. And that is true for supposed to be we should have whale watching,
Hmm.
and then also a hot air balloon
Wow.
experience. So we went to this. If you're familiar with the south of France, of Provence, there are a lot of or Bordeaux. There are a lot of vineyards there.
Wine
And
country. Yeah.
yes, wine country. And we went to Franschhoek.
Hmm.
It's a 2 hour, 1.5 hour drive from Cape Town proper to to this suburb, which is considered to be the wine and food capital of South Africa. So
Wow.
here's where you will see the villas of Richard Branson,
Mm.
some other dignitaries, and the Rothschild, and Rupert, the millionaires, billionaires of Africa. They have their own vineyards and their estate there. So we
Mm.
just imagine being on a hot air balloon surveying these beautiful landscape.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful because I just imagine that it would be. So my wife already went to Napa Valley, and she said Napa Valley could not compare to this. So
Right.
this is beautiful because Napa Valley is very, to her, it's really more plain. Yes,
Yeah.
there's undulating hill, but not like this with very steep cliffs,
Mm.
mountains, and then vineyards. So, hills and valleys and, vineyards in between, and all of the white estate buildings around, dotting around
Wow.
beautiful landscape. So we're already dreaming about this. And then all of a sudden, because of the wind factor,
Oh.
they canceled on us. Of course, we
Oh.
got a refund.
Mm.
And because of the same wind factor, and maybe because of the pressure under the sea as well, um, whale watching was canceled.
Ah.
So both hot air balloon and whale watching events were canceled. So
Mm.
when we were driving, coming from the hot air balloon station, I realized that my wife was really disappointed
Mm.
because we already experienced the whale watching being canceled. And now we just experienced the hot air balloon being canceled.
Mm. But
And
that there's lessons there as well.
of course,
Um,
of course.
that there's something to look forward to the next time around.
For sure, whenever you visit again, South Africa or what, but it's really hard for you to really append these two events together: whale
Mm.
watching and hot air balloon, right? So,
Mm.
we might not be able to get that from another country, but probably go back to South Africa.
Yeah.
But when when I saw the countenance of my wife,
Mm.
the dejection, the discouragement, the frustration, I just
Mm.
realized that yeah, maybe there is an option. So I asked my wife and our tour guide. I said, "Is a helicopter is a helicopter ride an option?" So it was not part of our itinerary because even before we flew to South Africa, everything is ironed out. All the things that we
Mm.
were doing, from this time to this time, because my wife is a really great planner. So we didn't actually entertain the thought of having a helicopter ride.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? And if we're lucky, we might even see whales when we are riding the helicopter.
Wow. Hey,
And
that's a good
that's
lateral solution.
and that is what we did because the refund, yeah, we just gathered the two refunds together. We added a bit more to get a ride at the helicopter. So it's not necessarily, but it's an added investment. So
Mm.
with the help of our tour guide, he was able to book for us an immediate, um, you know, uh, chopper ride. So we went
Wow.
back to Cape Town, and then in 30 minutes time, we boarded our chopper, and we spent 30 minutes surveying not
Mm.
only the vineyards but the whole of Cape Town from an
Mm.
aerial view. So we saw the Table Mountain. We're higher than the Table Mountain, and guess what, Dino? We were fortunate enough to see a whale mom and
Oh,
her calf swimming along the bay near the side of the cape. So yes,
wow.
we saw Cape Town from an aerial view, and we also saw whales from that. So what the
Mm.
learning here is, maybe explore, have options, and don't just resign, and then
Mm.
pivot, and maybe another experience is far better waiting for us all.
I imagine that if it had been available, you might have gone for skydiving too.
All
Eh,
that I will draw the line there.
yeah.
My wife said she might be doing it, but that's
Oh.
the time that perhaps I might not be joining my wife.
Yeah, but what an adventure. What kind of whale was that you saw?
Oh, we saw that I thought it was a humpback whale
Oh,
with her calf.
those are beautiful. Yeah.
Those are big as well. So imagine, the helicopter that our pilot saw that, yeah, look, there is a mother and her calf. And he
Mm.
even went down a bit so that we'll see a better view and hover around it. So it was a great experience. We saw the whole peninsula of Cape Town, and then we saw the whales, we saw the beaches. So if we only did the hot air balloon, we just saw the vineyards.
Yeah.
But saw the whole thing here. We are higher than the Table Mountain. We saw the whales and we
Mm.
saw the calf and we saw the whole whale, not just part of it, because we're just
Mm.
on top of them. So it was a great experience and not necessarily a bad exchange for those two events.
So a lesson there is that serendipity occurs sometimes in the midst of disappointment.
And
Something better.
also, you increase the probability if you are actually creative and able to
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Because of
well.
your innovation, you were able to enjoy it more than with just the hot air balloon per
I
se.
would say so, yes. And it was, well, to me, it was a bit more comfortable because in the hot air balloon, it will not be my first time to do it because we
Mm.
did it in Cappadocia in Turkey, and the
Yeah.
landing is not always as smooth. So
Right.
the chopper is a better option because it lifts up and lands smoothly. So it
Mm.
maneuvers very well as well.
Wow. Wow. So any plans for where you might go next time?
So next year, Dino, because my wife and I will be in our 50s by that time. So we'll be
Okay.
celebrating our 50th year, uh,
Oh.
chronological year, and we are planning, God willing, to celebrate it with a trip to Antarctica.
Wow.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes, so that is for
Oh,
2024, God willing. So
oh.
we already planned this because my wife has a big dream of, checking all continents.
Hmm.
So before they said there are seven, now they said there are eight. So but doesn't really matter because I have already been to seven continents.
Hmm.
So if you will consider Zealandia, New Zealand, where only New Zealand is seen in that uh, in that tectonic plate.
Hmm.
So we've been to Africa, Europe, Asia, North and South America, of course, Australia and New Zealand. So I am left with Antarctica, and my wife is left with South America and Antarctica. So what we are doing is for you to go to Antarctica, you either probably go to New Zealand
Yeah.
or to Chile or Argentina. So we elected
Hmm.
to go through the route of through Santiago in Chile because
Hmm.
I haven't been to Chile. I've been to Argentina already. So we chose Santiago, and from Santiago we go to the tip of Santiago where it's a jump off point for you to cross the Drake Passage and then go to Antarctica. So
If
that
you're a if you're a wine aficionado, then Chilean wine is a
also.
revelation.
Yes, they say so. Of course, but Argentina might debate with you on that. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh wow. Antarctica really would be someplace where you need to bring warm weather wear or cold weather wear.
so my wife actually planned that she would be touring with Silver Sea, and I think they will be providing us with the right
Mm.
attire, and outfit.
Mm.
They said it's important that it's uh, waterproof, even.
Yes, yes. High visibility orange and really
Yes, so
thick.
everything with a parka and everything.
Mm.
So, so she's leaving it to the expert,
Yeah.
but it would be another investment. Well, it will be another investment for experience for sure.
Mm. And another opportunity to bond with new friends from around the world.
And that is as well for sure. So we will need a whole month to actually do that,
Oh.
because we'll be covering a lot. Travel itself is not short. It might be 36 to 38 hours of
Mm.
travel, inclusive of your layover, and that's only going to Santiago. And
Mm.
going
Mm.
from Santiago, going to the tip of Santiago would be another plane ride. And then there would be a 48 hours of traversing the Drake Passage, which
Oh.
they say is the roughest sea on Earth, on the planet, because
Oh,
that's where
okay.
three oceans actually converge: the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Antarctic Ocean.
Maybe that's better traversed with a helicopter.
They- But you know what? There are many travelers who elected to fly from that
Mm.
tip of Chile to Antarctica, but they said that if they would be redoing it, they would do it again on a ship
Oh,
because
okay.
it is not the same experience being, shaken for
Uh,
48 hours
yeah,
in the
all
Drake
right.
Passage.
More throwing up.
Well, they say it's part of the experience. But
Yeah.
so yes, we look forward to that greater learning, and hopefully
Mm,
so I'll be able to share with you my learning experience as well next time around.
yeah. So, Eric, as a parting shot for the viewers, people who might be thinking about planning their own vacation, um, who helped you book this wonderful experience of a lifetime? Um, because they apparently did a very good job.
Yes, we have been partnering with our travel agent, but the key here, Dino, is first and foremost know what you want and what kind of
Mm,
experience that you want, so that
mm,
it will be very very clear to your partner agent or travel agency,
mm.
how they will be designing the experience. So
Oh.
provide a vision for them. Of course, they know all of the logistics, but these things would not come into fruition if
Mm,
the vision is not clear. So that is the first step. What do you want to experience, and what do you want to become after that experience. So that
Mm.
is the first thing that you have to lay down first. And then you might not necessarily have to be married to the same travel agent
Oh,
because they would
okay.
have their own expertise as well. So depending on what do you want to get from that experience, there would be agencies that would probably be the most apt with their kind of experience and with their
Mm.
kind of logistical muscle as well to deliver
Mm.
that kind of experience. But in
Yeah.
our case,
Mm.
we have been traveling for more than 20 years already with Raxo Travels.
Oh.
So they are our partners and they have rarely disappointed us as a couple.
Mm. Well, you heard it from Eric. If you want to experience the same bliss, the same adventure, then consider their travel agent. Um, so, Eric, if people want to see the pictures and the videos that you took, where would they go?
Oh, so if we're not yet still friends in Facebook, sure that you can, get in touch with me. I'm in Facebook. I'm in Instagram. I'm in TikTok, and of course,
Mm,
I'm in LinkedIn as well. I actually have a series as well in LinkedIn where I share, lessons from Africa, and I'm on my
mm.
third story already. So I think we will be amplifying this a bit more, and then you can just follow me through those channels and looking forward to having those exchanges of experience with you as well.
Someday, Eric, I'd look forward to buying a book that you're going to write about your adventures.
You read my mind. I actually, one of the things that I wanted to experience as well is you're really fully writing a book.
Mm,
And I'll be writing a book on, probably each chapter for each continent that we have been with
yeah.
Karen and myself. So it would not necessarily be a travel book. It probably be more of a mesh of romance
Mm,
because we sort of my experiences and how I experience the travel with my wife.
mm.
So that's how I probably would be framing that potential literary piece.
Okay. So, I guess now we will end the slideshow so that we can um, go to our closing portion. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like all the things that Eric and I talked about, do leave a comment in the comment section because Eric would love to read them, especially if you have any questions like were there any snakes? Do you get to use night vision goggles? And were the mosquitoes as bad as they are here in the Philippines? Whatever it is, Eric and I would love to read them. So do click on like, share, and subscribe. And for our upcoming episode, we're going to have, as you know, we have a new show called Tip Talks where we analyze great speeches and great speakers throughout history. For episode 3 of Tip Talks, we'll be analyzing the victory speech of Barack Obama. And so, as ever, we'd like to say thank you so much, Eric. And to everybody, good day because learning, like traveling, is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.